Hello fam, welcome back to the African Diaspora News channel. I am Wongel Zelalem bringing you this interview. So some of you might remember about a month ago, I did a story about two young men that were refused to enroll to a school because of their dreadlocks. And now they are here to tell their story. So welcome. First, I would like to welcome you.
Give thanks.
Yes,
Thank you
Tyrone
very
is
much.
here, and on behalf of Ohenebe, his dad, Ras Aswan, is here.
Aswad, yeah.
Aswa is
Aswad.
here. Yes.
Give thanks.
So we are very happy that you are here. And I would like to start, I would like you guys to start by telling us your experience at, I believe the school is called Achimota, right?
Yes.
So tell us.
Okay, I will begin by saying that when my son was accepted there through the computer processing, I decided to accompany his mother to the school just to ensure that, whatever procedures are done properly. And the first day I went there were a few itches because they didn't have everything well organized. So it wasn't presented to her in a proper manner. So she had to go back and forth for the first day, and then the second day, the same issue with the necessary paperwork. Until finally, on the third day, that was when we were told to come in for them to fully register everyone on that day. So we went there. So when my son went up to the desk or the table, whatever it was, the individuals who were actually doing the processing told him that he would not be allowed, he would not be admitted in the school because of his dreadlocks. I was not there at the desk when that happened. I was sitting a little way on some benches close by. So his mother came back and told me that he's not accepted. So I said, I couldn't believe it. Let me go and check. So I went up there and they told me basically the same thing in a very rude manner, with disdain. I wasn't pleased and wasn't happy about it. So I said, let me go to the headmistress to hear from her exactly what is the situation. When I went there, it was difficult to actually get her attention. Up until today, I haven't been able to see her face to face concerning the issue. I waited. I wasn't able to see her. So I decided to go and see the assistant headmaster. When I went downstairs to speak with him on the issue, he basically told me the same thing that I was told earlier downstairs, that the children will not be accepted with their dreadlocks, and if they want to get in the school, they will have to cut it. So the assistant headmaster told me that they will not accept the children there with their dreadlocks. So I immediately brought his attention to the Constitution, that there's a clause in the Constitution which allows the children to go to school regardless of what. So is the school rules above the Constitution? And he said that he's not interested in the Constitution. He's more interested in the school laws. And it has happened before, last year and the year before, and they were taken to court. And if I want to take it, wherever I want to take it, I am free, because they were taken to court, and they won. So I just decided to leave. So when I got home, I called the lawyer and he said to me, no, go back and let them sign, give you something in writing that they have rejected the child. So I went back. That was when I went back. I met Tyrone and his father was sitting down out there. So when I went inside there, they told me that, the gentleman told me that he will not give me anything in writing. He's not going to commit himself. Then I said, okay, let me have your name and your phone number. And he equally said the same thing, that he's not going to give it to me. So I didn't get his name and I didn't get his phone number. So that was when I went back outside, and I spoke with Tyrone and his father and tell them that, okay, when they come out, then we will discuss the way forward. So that is where the whole thing began. They went in, and when they came back, they told me that they received the same treatment. So I said to them that, okay, let us together address this issue from a legal standpoint. And that is what happened from there. So immediately I realized that the school, the authorities, they were not ready to have any proper engagement of negotiation or anything, because my wife was there at the same time when I went. And she tried to plea and beg with them and beg them to at least let us try and make a compromise to tie it behind or cover it or whatever. And they said, no, they're not interested in that. They cannot come in the school with the dreadlocks. So that was the end of that situation. And because I recognized that they weren't the kind of people that you can have in a proper dialogue with, I said, okay, the best thing to do is to take it to social media, take it to the local media, and also take a legal action. So that's what eventually happened. Why, it got spread all over the world from there on.
Thank you, Ras. And Tyrone, can you share with us your experience?
Okay, with my experience, we're triplets. So first, we went to St. John's where my two sisters were admitted. And from there, I had to go to Achimota first because my dad was in the queue for my sisters. And since it was the first day of admission process, I had to be there so that if there's any queue, I join. That way, it was speeding up things. So I went there with the staffs we were asked to present, the buckets, all the stuff, the documents and everything. And when I got there, she said in the process of admission, I have to first go to Agri Chapel. So then I was alone. I went in there and I met one of the house mistress, and she said with my hairs, Achimota will no way accept my hairs. And then in fact, they've had cases where they didn't accept that person. So if you don't want to cut your hairs, you have no other choice than to opt out or find another school. So later she said, with the stuff she's packing, I should keep my things away from hers, to try to keep a distance so that I don't mix with hers. And then later my dad came. So when my dad came, we went in to look for the headmistress, at least to confirm if what the house mistress says is correct or something. When we went there, we couldn't find the headmistress. They said she was at a meeting, and so we were directed to the assistant headmaster. We waited for I think an hour, and then we finally got to see him. And he said they got no other choice than that. Whatever he is telling us is what the headmistress will tell us, and that is if we are not cutting our hairs, Achimota will not accept us. So later, before we went to see the assistant headmaster, we met Raswad and Menkrabea. So coming out, that was when we discussed with him about everything.
Okay, so that's how you connected. Now I
Yeah.
understand that you guys are suing the school, correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you talk about the lawsuits or no?
Uh-huh.
Can you talk about the lawsuits, like how the progress?
Yes. Well, I think this is the third or the fourth time we went to court, and there has been a problem with the Achimota school adhering to the guidelines given by the court in terms of when we are supposed to file and present your submission and so on and so forth. So that has delayed the court a bit. So the last session that we went to, they were advised to have their submission presented in 5 days to the court, and then we come back on the 14th to go into the substantial aspect of the case. Originally, we tried to do a injunction so that the children could go to school immediately while the case is going on, but it was not accepted by the judge because, according to her, she was saying that it will influence the outcome of the case, prejudice the case, basically. So it was not the best thing for her to have done. Nonetheless, we accepted that, and we're looking forward to we are looking forward to the 14th to see exactly what will be the outcome.
Okay. So what do you think? is behind this regulations at this school? Where does it come from? It's our natural hair, correct? Like you're just growing it out of your head. Why is it such a big deal? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's an old colonial law from way back when those rules and guidelines were established to oppress Africans. So what they have done is that they have taken the same laws, rules, and have presented them today in the Achimota school. A lot of it has a little religious overtone in terms of religious animosity and whatever, of them thinking that they are Christians and they should push their religion on the students. Because of that dogmatic approach, they have been dealing with the situation in a very negative kind of a way, as if they don't care about anyone else's views or culture. So that's where it came from. It's the whole religious, colonial rules and guidelines that they are presenting today.
Yeah, I agree with that point. But I'm a Christian and I don't see anywhere in the Bible that says you should not have dreadlocks. So I would agree with the colonialism influence on that one.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of this before, but there's a bill in America called the Crown Act.
Yes.
So yes, so in California and also New Jersey and New York, they have accepted that it's basically a law for discrimination. If nobody can discriminate against dreadlocks, your natural hair, and braids anymore. And so it's funny to me the Western world is starting to understand that okay, this is their natural hair. They should be allowed to do what they want to do with it. So when they're changing their minds and putting in these laws, how come you think our own people are so against it or are not ready to accept it?
Yes, it is very unfortunate and ironic that we find ourselves in that position today, considering that we are in Africa, one, and two is that this is the land of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who have sacrificed so much to, ensure that there's a new African personality. And the legacy that he has left is so strong and powerful that one finds it very difficult to think that in this 21st century, in this age, people would be thinking and behaving like that. Achimota is a reputable school because of the fact that so many important, iconic leaders had some relationship with it. I think Mugabe was teaching there, and Nkrumah went there, and a few other Rawlings and a few other important people within the Pan-African world went there as well. So it is not a school that is not known and respected a certain kind of a way. But over the years, because of the dogmatic approach and trying to maintain that colonial legacy, not just in the school, but there are other aspects of the society where that old colonial mentality is still there. Today, when you look around, you see most of the women are wearing wigs, they are wearing earpiece, they are destroying their natural hair, bleaching, and doing so many things because of inferiority complex and all of that. So we have a challenge here in Ghana, not just with that, but in general, in terms of the economic situation, the poverty where the poor man at the bottom is feeling more than anything else. I guess if we were parents from some well-known, influential and wealthy society, they would have dealt with us in a different way, but they looked at us like, oh, you are nothing. You are just some little Rasta people who, we do not regard you. And that was the sentiment that we got from the way they dealt with us, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, very unfortunate indeed. So it's interesting that you mentioned wigs. I saw online someone defending you guys and writing about the headmistress. I believe he's a radio host. I could be mistaken. But he was talking about how the headmistress of this school wears a wig, somebody else's hair on their head, and these young boys are growing their own hair. And they're not allowed to attend the school. So the hypocrisy shines bright.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so I found that really interesting. Another thing I want to ask you is now we're talking about this specific school, but before the school, the schools that they attended, both maybe Tyrone, you can answer, and Ras, you can speak for your son. Um, was there any other issue like this that came up before the school?
No, you know, my
Okay,
son.
not
Okay, go ahead, Tyrone. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead,
okay.
Tyrone.
There was no form of discrimination as in Achimota's case because I stood at Omega, and back then I was the senior boys prefect. I was awarded on so many occasions, and there was no form of discrimination. So I would say Achimota's case is somehow new to me throughout my academic journey. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, Ras.
Yes, it's basically the same thing like what Tyrone just said. My children, I have three boys, and they all growing locks from birth. None of them have ever cut their locks before, and I've always taken them to the school myself, different school. They went to about three different schools before they went to Achimota, and I usually go and introduce them to the authorities to let them understand that they are vegetarians. They they have their locks, and if there's any problem, please call us and let us know, especially with their food and so on and so forth. So there was always an amicable solution to any problem if there was any, and they have been responding very very well over the years. They have responded very positively over the years in terms of having to deal with them. There wasn't any issue concerning their locks. So once we tied behind, everything was fine for all those schools that we went to. So it was very, very surprising. Just like Tyrone said, it was very unusual and surprising to see that we came across, a city. I mean, I was really shocked, to be honest. I don't know if you saw my first video I did. I was really shocked and I was very angry because I couldn't believe that they did something like that. I was really taken aback. I just couldn't get over it. So, it's very painful, very, very painful and very hurtful to see that they would have taken such a very cold and callous stance on the issue, considering it's an educational institution and they are dealing with children. Just like Professor Cambon was saying the other day in his video, is that he wouldn't send his children there because he sees it as child abuse. And in truth and in fact, it's very abusive in terms of what they have done and what they are doing. I came across a young girl. She's about 15 now, and she went there. Her mother took her there, and her hair wasn't locks, but it was long, very, very beautiful hair. And they told her, they told her that they would not accept her with her hair that length. And she started crying and told her mother that, no, mommy, I don't want to go to the school because I'm not going to cut my hair. So the mother had to take her away. Now she's settled in another school here, and she went through a very rough time and traumatic experience because it wasn't easy for her to make that transition to another school because it was very late. So the mother went through a whole lot of problem to get the girl into the school. I just recently spoke with her, and the memory in her mind is so strong. Even up until today, she's still disturbed by the experience. So this is something they have been doing for a very long time. I also found out that by accident, when we went to meet the Ghana Education Service, the headmistress was there, and she told the assistant boss from GES, assistant director for the GES, that it was three students, Tyrone, Ohinaba, and a girl child. That was when I found out it was three of us. It was three of them. And she said the little girl is in the school because she cut her locks. So when the news broke, the parents got in touch with me and they sent me the locks that was cut off in a plastic bag. And the girl, she was a entertainer. She's an artist of reggae music, and it was three of them, just like Tyrone and his sisters. They do music in the same way, and you could see the clear difference between what she is today and when she used to perform on stage with her locks. And I'm sure it has affected her big time. She's in the school. I haven't gotten in touch with her yet, and I'm afraid to even get in touch with her because I know it will be very traumatic. So, it has happened to quite a few individuals. I have had several occasions where the Rastafari community have been to different schools and have had similar problems. And when we were ready to mobilize around it, when they got to the point of actually addressing the situation, they changed their mind because they couldn't continue facing the challenges of having to take it to court, having to go through all the necessary, rigmarole and whatever to get the advocacy done. So they made some compromise with the school. Some of them cut it, some of them do different things, and they just dealt with their own situation there. Several situations like that. Even one where the lawyer was there ready to take it to court and they changed their mind. So it is something that I was very upset about for years. I've seen that happen. And it just so happened that this is my child, so I had some control over it. And I knew all along that if that situation had happened, I would have taken it to court just to ensure that it is addressed permanently, properly, through a legal framework in Parliament or whatever the case is, that the law is established to protect these children. So this is just not really the first time, but it's my first time in terms of experiencing it.
Okay, Ras, for those people who, don't know much about Rastafari and why it is really important for you to have your locks, can you explain to them why this is important to your
Yes.
community?
Yeah, well, we know, I would just like to say first is that within the Rastafari movement, there are several different trends of thought, different aspects of the Rastafari movement in terms of how we deal with our spirituality and our culture. There are basically four tenets. You have the Bobo Shanti, you have the 12th tribe, you have the Naya Bingi, and the one that they call Ethiopian World Federation, which is not really a religious organization. It was an organization that was set up by Haile Selassie for the black people of the world to come home to Ethiopia. But because of Rastafari affinity towards Haile Selassie and the movement, they have embraced it, and today the strongest supporter of that Ethiopian World Federation is the Rastafari movement. So they brought that spirituality in there. So they are considered also another group, which is four different groups that they call mansions. So we have what we call four mansions, which is four different groups with different tenets. Some of the the different groups, they have their different practices as regards to their way of life. Like for instance, some would see it as a Nazarite vow that they have taken based on the scriptures in the Bible and the Christian values and so on and so forth, where the Dreadlocks is concerned. There are others who see it as a part of nature, that they must just live natural and live here and let it grow. And there are others who see it as a sign of resistance, like the group we had in Kenya, the Moma group, Moma tribe, and the Naya Bingi, Queen Naya Bingi from, I think she was from Zimbabwe. And then others who also recognize that it is their right to, wear the dreadlocks if they so please. So there are different approaches to it, but all in all is that most of the Rastafari organizations and groups, they have a very strong reverence and attachment to the dreadlocks because of the fact that it is natural. It represents a certain level of a certain aspects of their culture as Africans. So these are some of the reasons why we attach a certain level of importance to it.
And I have seen an article on the boys, and they're really outstanding students.
Yes, yes. Like Tyrone, for instance, he had the highest marks in the whole school. He had what they call aggregate 6. He was number 1. And my son had aggregate 10. And these are top marks in the school, because if you go to the school right now, even when we went there that day, on the board they were aggregate 30, as much as aggregate 30. And those students are in the school today. So it was very unfair to them. And I'm sure someone like Tyrone and my son, they were very surprised knowing that they have done so well and was rejected. These are students who have proven themselves and are, and are an example that at least Achimota School should have done some kind of consideration, even if they didn't accept it, but at least dealt with the students much better than they did.
Yeah, it was really unfair. But I want to ask you something before we end this, and also I want you to talk about Deborah. I'm seeing her here. Let me see if I can include
Okay,
her.
okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
But I'm not seeing. She's not coming up. Deborah?
Okay.
Well, we couldn't get through to Deborah, so I would like you to tell us what she's trying to do, and just maybe give us what she's been doing.
Okay, yeah, I came across her from because of her relationship with my son when this issue came up through Tyrone, because Tyrone was the first one that was communicating with her, and then he introduced my son to her, and then my son told me about her. That this 14-year-old girl who she is giving them some information concerning the United Nations to be able to engage with the United Nations in terms of politics and economics and world affairs and so on and so forth. So I thought that was very good for a young person at that age to be so occupied with those concerns of the world. So I said, okay, let me speak with her. So I went online and started engaging her, and then she was explaining to me what her mission is. She also explained to me that she had a group of 10 teenagers that was under her during the election who oversee the process of the election in her area. And I was very stunned just to hear that a 14-year-old young girl that is taking life so serious, where an issue like the election should pay such keen attention to it. So she said to me that she really needed some assistance and support with what she's doing, because it was her alone, and she was wondering if there was anyone that I could link her up with to just help to guide her and establish some more network so that she can you know be engaging with more people. So that is how it actually started. And I got back with Tyrone and my son, and was trying to see exactly what it is that they were doing, and she gave them some subjects to to respond to concerning the United Nations and its relationship with the different countries, and they had to choose a country to do the engagement. I think Tyrone did Ethiopia, and no, sorry, Tyrone did China or one of those Asian countries, and my son did Ethiopia. So it drew my interest because I was able to let her understand that Emperor Haile Selassie was a foundation of the new United Nations, and he was also a foundation member of the Leagues of Nations, which turned into the United Nations, that she wasn't aware of. So I was able to give her some more information about Emperor Haile Selassie and his role, and then even the song that Bob Marley made that is titled War. That song came from Emperor Haile Selassie's speech, and she was so elated and excited to hear that song that she was hearing all along on the radio. It was from a speech taken by Emperor Haile Selassie when he went to the United Nations to plead for support for Ethiopia, and the world turned their backs on His Majesty and Ethiopia. So that was a revelation for her, and I recognized that she was very elated and excited and happy to learn that. So we took on that affinity for each other, and I told her that I would like to speak with her father to see exactly, you know, just to let him be aware that we are in communication, and I'm there to assist her and whatever. And the discussion with the father was very, very, very wonderful.
She's definitely a bright young lady. Hopefully
Yes.
one day we can get her on here and she can talk to us. Right now it seems like her connection is bad, so we can't
Right.
have her here right now. But she's doing a wonderful job.
Yes.
So my last question for both of you is, what do you hope to see after this? Everything, goes well or whatever the judge decides. What is your hope for that school, as well as, other schools or other workplaces that are not accepting of natural hair dreadlocks? So, Rascal
Uh,
first.
Let Tyrone go since he wasn't here. Go ahead, Tyrone.
Okay, Tyrone. You see, in our culture, uh,
Oh yes,
older
I
people
know.
go first, so
Yeah,
respect. Okay,
right. I know.
Tyrone.
I know.
Okay, we're looking forward that this don't happen again, because um, before you can even get admission into Achimota, you need to pass your exams. And Ohineba and us and myself, we were able to make it and try harder to score A1. I mean, our scores were excellent. So the idea of even having to stay home for about a month just because of your haircut, later you're going into court and stuff while your peers are learning, it's a very depressing something. So we're looking forward that this don't happen to anyone else, because it may look like it is very terrible if you are to experience something similar. Yes, so that's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping, that it don't happen ever again, and what's right is eventually done.
Thank you, Tyrone.
Yes. Well, I would want to say that we want to set a precedent to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And we recognize that during this advocacy, it has given a lot of people opportunity to come out and defend and fight for their rights in so many different ways across the globe, not just in Ghana. We are looking forward and hoping that Ojiniba and Tyrone will stay together and actually, along with our young sister here, Deborah, and establish a legal organization that does some advocacy where the rights of children are concerned, and possibly build a foundation out of that they can contribute to the less fortunate in society where their rights has been violated. Those are the two main things that we want to ensure, and that Parliament takes it very serious. And if there needs to be some adjustment with the Constitution, since the Achimota School is claiming that Article 14 has given them the right to take that decision, which we want to have that clear up in court. And if that is the case, we would like the Constitution to be adjusted so that the rights of the children will be protected.
Well, thank you so much, and I believe this is going to make a big change, because even before you've said there were people that were turned away, but they didn't do anything about it. Nobody heard their story. So, no justice, nothing has been done, but at least you're taking on that fight, and we respect that. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us, because it is a really important story. And a lot of African countries, frankly, need to look back and see why there are these regulations, and they have to amend them, because this is not fair, right? Especially in Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And thank you
yeah.
very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, fam, for watching. Let us know down below what your thoughts are about our guests and the topic. I'll see you next time. Bye.